start live streaming now on the other venues.
Yep.
Just give me the thumbs up and we'll get started.
Yeah, all set. Let's start.
Okay.
Inshallah.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening. Apologies, we're a few minutes late. We just wanted to make sure our slides are presenting appropriately. So I wanted to first thank our community for joining us on this very important topic this evening rather. And I wanted to thank our speakers who will be joining us today. In presenting, we have Dr. Waqar Chima, Dr. Umar Shakur, and Dr. Abdul Zahid. For majority of the community knows them all. They're senior community members, as well as huge assets to the community in various facets of programming and support with the Islamic Center of New England, as well as with Al Noor Academy. So we'd like to thank all of our presenters and then in accepting an invitation on this much needed topic and discussion for the community. So for no further ado, I would like to now inshallah request Dr. Chima if he could take it over, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Waqar Chima. Most of the community members, they know me. And introduction is mostly for newcomers in the community. By profession, I'm a cardiologist. My current title is Chief of Cardiology at Norwood Hospital. In addition to doing my clinical work, I'm on various task force and committees to manage the quality of care, and most recently dealing with the prevention of COVID in office and other population. So basically on today's program, the first after the introduction, we'll go on to Brother Umar Shakur and Brother Abdul Zahir. They are going to introduce themselves and start the session. Once they are completed with the introduction a brief introduction about COVID-19, development of vaccine, which is a specialty of Brother Abdul Zahir, and then I will come to some common questions which I have gathered from Muslim community and patient population at large. So we can move on to the next speaker for introduction.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Umar Shakur. I'm a cardiologist as well at Sturdy Memorial, and Brother Dakir pressed us into a service on this topic, which I think is very important: coronavirus vaccine, myth versus truth. So my job, I see a lot of these patients. I'm not an infectious disease specialist or a pulmonary critical care doctor, but we do end up seeing a lot of these patients in my practice at Sturdy, both when they're acutely infected and in the hospital, and then afterwards when they've recovered. So I thought a brief review of this would be helpful. So COVID-19, as you all know, it's an acute viral illness caused by the virus called SARS-CoV-2. And symptoms can be quite, widespread, but the most common are fever and cough. However, you can get shortness of breath, fatigue, muscle, body aches, headache. And one thing that's kind of interesting is that a lot of people report loss of taste or smell. Seems to be common, especially among younger patients. Sometimes that's the only symptoms they have. Sore throat is not uncommon. Congestion, runny nose, that tends not to be as common, but is there. Nausea, vomiting, and some people actually do get a fair amount of diarrhea or GI upset, and sometimes that presents a little bit later in the disease. The incubation time is as long as 14 days, but most people who are exposed will become sick, or what we call symptomatic, within 4 to 5 days of exposure. So typically, it's very important to test for COVID if you're exposed to somebody who has it, or if you yourself develop symptoms. And there's a variety of tests that you could give another talk on the types of tests that are available, whether it's antigen testing or PCR testing. That's kind of a more technical discussion. The good news in Massachusetts is that there are a lot of free testing sites in the state. If you have symptoms, most of the time, and you get the test ordered through your doctor, the test is free. Sometimes if you're getting the test for other reasons like travel or return from travel, you may have to pay out of pocket for the test. So there's different issues like that. But if you do get sick with COVID, it's important if you're an outpatient, meaning you're being treated at home, that you isolate, you quarantine. You should stay in one room in your home. If you have access to your own bathroom, you should use your own bathroom. And you should also wear a mask. And anyone else coming in or out should be wearing a mask. Sorry about that. And the other thing is rest and fever reducers. And basically rest is an important part of treatment. For high-risk patients, there are these newer treatments called monoclonal antibody infusions, which you can get if you're at high risk to progress to more severe disease. And the most important thing is that you stay in touch with your doctor, especially if your symptoms worsen for any reason. For inpatients, there's really a much more complex treatment, and it really depends on the severity of disease and what your health conditions are, what other problems you may have, especially if you have lung disease or heart disease. And so there's very detailed guidance on treatment options via the NIH, which are quite helpful. Of course, you all know it's all across the country right now, especially in the upper middle states and the western states. The very dark areas are the most heavily affected. The top 50 counties, this is from today, so you can see Los Angeles County, which is in California, obviously, Cook County in Chicago, Miami-Dade County, Harris County in Pennsylvania, so Dallas. These are some of the places that are most heavily affected. And if you look at that curve on the bottom right of the screen, you can see that over the past couple of months, the number of confirmed cases has gone up significantly. So we're definitely in the middle of an uptick in cases right now. And unfortunately, in some parts of the country, it's looking very bad in terms of hospital capacity and management of the disease in the hospitals. So this is just briefly to introduce the next topic, which will be by Dr. Abdul Zahir. But just to introduce his talk here, how do vaccines help? They reduce the chance that you get sick with COVID-19, which is the most important thing, because if you don't get sick with it, then it reduces the chance that you would end up needing a hospitalization for COVID-19. And so it's especially important that the elderly in our community get vaccinated, and people with certain medical conditions. It's also important to remember, because we live in a time where, for some reason, vaccines have always been held with a certain amount of distrust, generally speaking, and also in America recently. But vaccination is one of the most successful health interventions that have taken place in the United States. Yeah, I think the only thing that would be more successful than vaccination in the United States in terms of healthcare was if we had a national health service, which unfortunately we don't, but that's a political discussion, so I'll stay away from that. But outside of universal healthcare, vaccination is probably the most important thing that we've ever done for our population as a country. And it has significantly reduced or eliminated diseases such as measles, mumps, rubella, polio, meningitis, hepatitis, and even chickenpox. I mean, I don't know, many of you who are younger probably never even had chickenpox. But when I was growing up, chickenpox was a very common disease. Most kids got it. And nowadays we have medical students and younger, physicians coming through our healthcare system. They don't even know, they've never seen chickenpox. They don't even know what it is, And so I think that's important to keep in mind. Many of these diseases, actually, if you asked the average person, unless you have an interest in medical history or you yourself are a healthcare professional, you couldn't tell me the top 3 symptoms of rubella. How many people know that? The top 3 symptoms of polio, mumps, and there's a good reason for that. We don't have these diseases. So fortunately, vaccination is very successful. And I think we have to remember that as we talk about the COVID-19 vaccines, that the U.S. has a very successful history of vaccine development and until very recently, very good uptake of vaccines among the population, especially compared to other countries. So with that, Dr. Abdul Zahir, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brother Umar. My name is Abdul Zahir. Most of the people know me. I've been in pharmaceutical industry for over 25 years. Worked a lot on this vaccines. Worked with the Sanofi and the quadrivalent flu vaccine. And last year, I mean, today is the first, so I have to say last year was a crazy year for the COVID-19. Worked with Catalent, who are manufacturing the vaccines for both AstraZeneca and Moderna vaccines. My topic, do you want to continue just a second? Okay, let me so I'm going to share some slides. Objective will be just to get the people to know what the mechanisms are. And I'm sure most of the people are very educated about vaccine and especially the COVID-19. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see them.
You can see it. So vaccine, according to CDC, is something which stimulates your immune system to produce antibodies exactly like it would if you were exposed to the disease. So we can say that it corrects the present condition, but it does not protect you from getting it again. Types of vaccines, we know all different kinds of vaccines, and the whole virus vaccine, I classified it into 4 different kinds, but you can classify it into 20 different types also. The whole virus vaccine, of which they are alive, and the live are attenuated, mean they are like half-dead vaccine. So they do not create the disease, and rather they give you the immune response, which can correct the condition. You have the inactivated Hep A, flu shot, polio, rabies. You have the virus subunit, which means in the first one, whole virus, you take the whole virus and then you kind of attenuate it to make it half dead, or inactivated to make it completely dead. In the virus subunit, you take a part of the virus and try to elicit the desired immune response. And those are the Hep B, the HPV, whooping cough, the pneumo, the meningococcal shingles. The points of interest for today is the nucleic acid. The nucleic vaccines are like the COVID-19 and Ebola. Toxide are diphtheria, tetanus, in which not the virus, but the toxin created by virus is injected for the given response. COVID-19 vaccines. So the vaccines, there are more than 80 companies, as I have read, who are working on this COVID-19 vaccines. But some of these major ones are Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Oxford, Sinovac, which is from China, and the Australian vaccine. The Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna, these are called the mRNA vaccine, and I'll come to it. Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca are the DNA vaccine. The vaccine from China is a whole virus vaccine. And the Australian vaccine is also like the AstraZeneca vaccine, but it has created some problem in Australia. So the Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna uses messenger RNA. Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca uses DNA to create messenger RNA. But they both use what is called adenovirus, which is the flu virus, in order to carry the material through the body. So if you read, and my other purpose, I thought I'm going to mention these different terminologies. So if you read something like vector, vector is nothing but a carrier. So adenovirus, or the flu virus, is a carrier for Johnson and AstraZeneca. Australian, I don't know why they made this mistake, but they used the HIV virus as a carrier. But remember, these viruses are first inactivated. So what they did is Australian vaccine gave a very good response. However, when people were tested, they tested positive for HIV. So people did not get HIV disease. However, the test was showing HIV to be positive because the dead HIV virus was used. So in other terms, what we need is the material, and then we need a carrier to cross it into the body cells. So as I said, the two major vaccines we have approved, and most of us are getting soon or already got it, are the DNA, the messenger RNA vaccine. So just to a quick explanation of what is a DNA and an RNA. So DNA is what is called deoxyribonucleic acid. And RNA is ribonucleic acid. So not much difference if you think about just one oxygen difference. So let's think about the DNA. DNA is present in cell nucleus. Cell nucleus, and I was thinking of giving a clear example so everybody remembers it. So think about the cell nucleus as the board of director of ICNI, which makes all the commands. So this is the DNA. If whole Sharon Masjid was our body, then the board of director will be the nucleus making all the decisions. The board of director, as I know, they assign one member to carry out a function. So let's say Tokir was assigned to build a basketball court. So Tokir will take this information from the board of director, which is the DNA, acting like a messenger, and will go and collect the community and the technician and the masons and then make that board, that basketball court. So think about that we have a cell nucleus, a board of director, which created a messenger RNA. The messenger RNA took all which was told to them in the board of director meeting, went to the place to execute the function, which is called ribosomes. So just three things to remember: nucleus, messenger RNA, and ribosome. So how these vaccines work? So the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine, they are very, and it is a brother, maybe I'm in this field, but this is the best science I have seen in my life. So what they do is they will take the virus. If we all know the structure of the coronavirus, there are spikes on top of it. So whenever the coronavirus enters our body through the spike, and in the spike, there is a spot which is called receptor binding domain, RBD. So this virus connects to our cell, attaches to our cell through RBD, and then produce and make us sick. So what the scientists did is they took out that RBD spike, took those genes, those codes, put it in the DNA template, and created all this, a messenger which can produce spike protein. So this messenger RNA, and I love this because my graduate thesis was on liposome, so I got more excited about this vaccine. So what they do is then they encapsulate this messenger RNA into lipids, and which is called the liposomes. And why do they do it? Because the cell membrane is lipophilic. It loves lipid kind of material. So in order for anything to pass through our cell layer, it has to be lipophilic, meaning lipids loving. So they make these lipids, the lipids containing the gene code, then enters the cell. And the beautiful part is that it goes into a surrounding the cell, doesn't go into cell nucleus. The nucleus is the controller, doesn't go there, stays in what is called cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm, it will release the messenger RNA, and messenger RNA will go into ribosomes and create these spikes protein, these spikes. As soon as these spikes are created, they get out of the cell, and now they have those RBD, remember the receptor binding domains. So they will attach to our cells. When they attach to our cell, the body thinks something has invaded. And when it invades, it will secrete what is called T cells. There are many different, but in short, there are T cells which are cytotoxic, will kill these cells. And then it creates antibody, the B cells, which will then kill more of these cells. So the objective is that once these are created, the messenger RNA is out now. And this spike protein will generate these antibodies, and the antibodies will stay in our body. And when the real virus comes, it will know how to handle it, because they are used to it now. And once it comes, and as the doctors know more than me, but most of the people die because the virus multiplies and fills the lungs and the whole things, and then it leads to all those complications. So this is the objective. The only difference of AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson viruses, that instead of messenger RNA, they take the adenovirus, the flu virus, and incorporate this spike protein cells into the gene, into the DNA of adenovirus. So now that is the DNA virus vaccine, the DNA vaccine. This DNA vaccine, now viruses, we know, viruses love to enter our body, so they don't need any lipophilic liposomes or anything. They inject the viruses, which are of course inactivated. They inject it, they get into our cell. The only thing is that they now, instead of staying here in the cytoplasm, they go into nucleus. However, the scientists have removed from those DNA the art of replication. So they don't replicate, they don't divide themselves. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble. So they will create, they will release this mRNA inside the cell nucleus, which then comes out and then acts like similar to what the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine acts. If we look at the DNA, and this may be exciting to me and not to you, but it's very interesting. If you look at the DNA has 4 bases: adenine, cytosine, guanine, thymine. The same 4, except for the thymine, there is uracil in RNA, the same 4. So look at this, our whole 8 billion, 6 billion people are made up of these 4 bases. However, the sequence are different. And that's how we are different from each other, and how these viruses differ in terms of. A major thing was raised, what are the ingredients in these vaccines? So these ingredients, if you look at the label of these vaccines, it's by FDA law, they have to list all the ingredients. So the ingredient in Pfizer vaccine is messenger RNA, which is a lab-created RNA with codes for spike protein. Then we have the lipids, 4 different kinds of lipids, which makes the liposome. Then we have potassium chloride, potassium phosphate, sodium chloride, and sodium phosphate. All these are to create, in order to maintain the pH of the vaccine, is the human pH, which is more like neutral pH. And it's very important we maintain the neutral pH, otherwise we'll be burning. And also it creates what is called isotonicity, which means the osmotic pressure inside the cell and outside is same. And maybe you don't remember, but I remember when I was very young, we used to put some eye drop in our eye in Pakistan, and it will burn like crazy. And because sometime, and later on when I joined this field, I found they were not isotonic. So it has to be isotonic, otherwise your cell will secrete other stuff. And it's, so all these ingredients are present in many of the medicines and are harmless chemicals. And sucrose is a stabilizer, which is used to prevent sticking of the particles, of the drug particles, the RNAs, to the side of glass bottles. Stabilizer, it also gives some tonicity also. So nothing big here that we should be afraid of. The same thing for Moderna vaccine, same RNA, different lipids, different buffers having the same function. And water, which is in both cases, sterile water for injection. If you look, I'm sure we all know that the Moderna vaccine is kept at -20 and the Pfizer at -70. And the major difference is they say there are some trade secrets about, they changed their sequence of RNA a little bit from each other. So according to Moderna, their product is more stable for temperature. In my view, it's more because of the liposomes, because these are different lipids and they have different stability at different temperatures. But anyhow, it's the stability where we have to save it at -20 and -80. Main thing about DNA vaccine, which is the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, because DNA is more stable than RNA. And therefore, you can keep, like AstraZeneca vaccine, when it's approved, of Johnson & Johnson, you can keep in that fridge, in the common fridge, at 2 to 8 degrees for 3 months. And before we decide on all other things, as we all know that the cost for Moderna, Pfizer ranges from $20 to $50 per shot, whereas Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca will be $3 to $5. So think about the $3 to $5 and keeping in the fridge versus $50 and keeping it -70. So when I look at it, I think most of the developed world with rich people will be using these two, whereas the rest of the world will be using more of, because of the cost price, but more of the logistics, because I will probably never trust a -70 freezer outside USA, or, I don't think they can be kept there. AstraZeneca, all these, Brother Shakur, he did raise this point, maybe not yet, but I think we will be discussing it. But this is a key point which we raised, and that the CanSino, which is one of China vaccine, AstraZeneca, Janssen, University of Pittsburgh vaccine, and Immunity Bio, another vaccine. They all use what is called PERC5 and HEK293 cell line. These lines are obtained from retina and kidney of aborted fetuses. But the cell line, the fetus were obtained in 70s and 80s. And since then, they have been created in the labs. So whatever they are doing now are 100% made in the lab. But remember, these are used for growing the adenovirus. Because adenovirus, when it's modified, it grows very slowly, uncontrolled. Therefore, they use this cell line to increase and control the growth. However, I'll tell you, nowadays I work in gene therapy, and every product almost which is under research is using HEK293 cell line, because people forgot that the origin was from the 70s and 80s from aborted fetus. When I look at, when I Google it, the Christian churches have raised a lot of questions. Muslim Masajid are also raising questions about the use, and I'm all for raising these questions, because this makes the science work hard to find alternate. And if you remember, a few years back, we were talking about stem cells, and when all the religious institutions raised questions, the science was able to create alternate. So I think I'm all for this, but we have, before we decide whether people should use the vaccine or not, there are some other factors which we must be consulting with our religious institution. And, Sharon Ikni could be one of them. I think I'll wait for any more questions, and I'll give it to Wakar Bhai. You can take it from here. Thank you.
Can we go back to the original slides which Brother Umar Shakur presented? So if we can share that screen again. Or let me see if I can bring this screen up on my side.
Okay.
Okay, on this one, we can go back to, yeah, we are right there. So basically, the biggest question at this point arises in the minds of everybody. Vaccine, are they being prepared in a way where we can use them without any religious questions or issues? I would encourage all the community to go on to these listed websites. In addition to that, there is also British Board of Islamic Scholars. They have their own website where a lot of the questions are posted, and some of the material I researched from the other task force where I have come across these questions. Can we move to the next slide, please? So in addition to the origin of the vaccine, the different ingredients, at this point, most of the Muslim community and scholars, they are in full agreement that Pfizer and Moderna vaccine has no animal product whatsoever, does not have any fetal tissue or any cell lines from fetal tissue. So most of the scholars, they have endorsed this vaccine and does not carry any ingredient which can be considered haram.
Yeah, Wakar, just to add to your points, one thing which I want to emphasize that, the vaccine material production is not that hard. The hardest thing for us is always the purification. So just to add to your point, that whatever ingredients they started with, we have to get the purest mRNA. Otherwise, the reaction, the side effects will be too many. So just to your point that there are no cells, nothing outside the messenger RNA.
Okay, so that basically covers one question. This question has come across from my Muslim patients. They said, is there any ingredient in the vaccine development, particularly Pfizer and Moderna, which will interfere with my beliefs? So at this point, what I researched and spoke with the different people and researched various Muslim organizations, so far, most of the organizations, they have cleared these vaccines to be used. And the fetal tissue and cell line, as Brother Zahid mentioned, it is a controversy, but this controversy will be probably coming in upcoming vaccines from AstraZeneca, J&J, or from Australian vaccine. But at this point in the United States, what you have available, fortunately, we do not have any of that concern. So purely resting that question on the side, if somebody has any concerns or questions with multiple Muslim organizations and researchers, they have endorsed that even they do not carry gelatin or pectin, which is used in some vaccines as a stabilizers. So stabilizers and origin of vaccine so far looks all clear to me from that standpoint. Could we please go to the next slide? So the big question arises, this question came actually from another Muslim patient in my practice. They said, viruses are harmful to human body. At one end, we are trying to fight them. And we, at the other end, you mean physicians or the scientists are suggesting us to inject these viruses in our body. Are we doing something unreligious or act of cavalierness that will lead to eventual disease and sickness? So as we initially discussed in the panel, these viruses, first of all, they are weakened if we ever use them. And this particular vaccine, which is in question today and debate, there is no live or weakened virus, so that question should not be a concern. But we do routinely use vaccines, and we use vaccines for multiple reasons to protect ourselves. At the same time, the people who have recently gone for Umrah, I believe that you cannot get your Umrah visa unless you have a particular vaccine given and certificate is produced. That just tells you under certain circumstances and under certain countries' laws, these vaccines, they may become important to look at. This question, I will put it back to that same patient of mine. And I said, well, if let's say tomorrow you want to go for Umrah and Saudi Arabia requires you to have the vaccine before you land over there, what will be your answer? So this will be a question for all of the listening ears and minds tonight. We can go to the next one, please. The potential harm which comes from a attenuated virus, or if it comes from a live virus, is really not a concern because scientists, they take very important precaution. One thing certainly becomes a big issue like what is happening in Australia. The virus vector which they are using is related to HIV, and people who are getting that vaccine, if you test them 6 months down the road and they say, oh, you are HIV positive, it can create certainly a very big social, emotional, and medical issue going forward. So again, coming back to what we have in the United States, we don't need to worry about that part. Next slide, please. The one question was asked to me, why we should be responsible for others, we need to take care of our own health. Well, we belong to a very beautiful religion, which emphasizes not only to protect your own life, your family life, and all the lives which matter. So by taking a vaccine, if it protects you and decreases the chances of infecting the others and increases the herd immunity, which will be very beneficial in the long term, I would personally say that I will feel morally, ethically, or even religiously responsible to recommend this vaccine to save lives. If it is saving the lives and saving the families, why not? Next slide, please. There is also a big question being circulating in the media and has been asked. Actually, this question came to me not by one of our Muslim patients. Actually, this was one of another American patient from not a Muslim faith. This patient was absolutely convinced that there are microchips or very tiny devices which will be embedded into the vaccine for the future tracking of civil liberties violation and all things which you already know. We do not need to go into detail. But so far, what I have learned about this vaccine from researchers, from clinicians and virologists and people working in immunology, there is no such microchip embedded into these vaccines, and it is purely a conspiracy theory, nothing less, nothing more. Could we move to the next slide, please? Is vaccine safe? What about the side effects? To the best of my knowledge, there is not any medication or material invented free of side effects. If you look into even going to McDonald's carries a lot of side effects. You're over there, you're going just to eat some food. So it is conceivable that these vaccines will have some side effects. Just let's think about flu vaccine. Meningitis vaccine, which every one of you is probably mandated to take it before you go for Umrah, or all the vaccines which your children are required before they go to school. So there are calculated side effects which can be taken into account. Arm swelling, pain where the injection was given, mild fever, sometimes chills, tiredness, headache. Those side effects can happen. And most of those side effects are manageable. It is less risky to take a vaccine than driving on the road. And we drive every day without any hesitation. Can somebody have serious side effects? Sure. People who have history of drug reactions to the multiple medications, or people who are generally prone to drug reactions, they can have serious side effects. Please do consult with your MD, primary care physician or specialist. In certain situations, we can minimize the adverse or allergic reaction by treating those patients prophylactically. Give you one example. One patient of mine who was seriously and very critically reactant to iodine contrast material. If you give this person, probably you will kill that patient. This patient required cardiac catheterization. We prepared 3 days in advance, gave this patient prophylactically all the required medications. All the procedure was done, stents were placed, and no reaction to this patient whatsoever. So basically, message to you is minor side effects can happen. They can be managed very easily. Serious side effects can happen. But those, again, if vaccine becomes absolutely important for you to take, consult your doctor. We can give prophylactically medications and prevent the reactions from happening. Next slide, please. Will government force us to take the vaccine? At this point, it is not a law. I use word, it is not a law. Will it become a law? We don't know yet. It is optional. I personally believe it is a civic duty if you can protect yourself, your life, your family's life, and your neighbor and community's well-being by taking the vaccine, why not? And when and if it becomes absolutely mandatory to travel around in the world, that is the topic which Brother Fawad is going to cover in a few minutes. It might become a necessity for you. Airline may not let you take the plane, and country may not issue you a visa. That might be another forthcoming problem which we need to prepare ourselves and get ready. Next slide, please. Can this virus mutate and render the vaccine useless? So once I am done with this one, we'll open the forum to questions, and other experts on the forum can also reply to that one. It is possible viruses, they do mutate for their own survival. Sometimes virus mutation can happen in one season so quickly. Same flu virus, which is causing influenza in Australia, and United States is busy making a vaccine for that virus, anticipating in 3 months' time, virus will hit American shores. Vaccine is ready. By that time, virus has already mutated. And flu vaccine is not effective or not effective at all. On the other hand, there are some viruses which are very stable, like measles. In almost last 70 years, it has not mutated much. And the vaccines which are being given then and now, they are fully effective. COVID-19 virus is already mutating, as you may also be watching the news these days. Whether that mutation is going to interfere with the efficacy of the vaccine, only time will tell. However, most of the experts, they believe so far with the current technology available, the vaccine from Moderna and Pfizer might be equally effective. Even recently, virus which is being mutated. And if you go back into the pandemic, few months ago, there was also a news that there are multiple type of viruses in United States already. The virus which hit the West Coast had different clinical symptoms and findings than the virus which hit East Coast. If you remember few briefings from Governor Cuomo, he said that we were hit by a wild type of Italian virus because most of the infections which happened in our area, they were from that type of virus. At the same time, virus on the West Coast was a little bit different. And the people and some of my friends who are working in Texas and South, they say that virus has been mutated there since summer. And there was one virus mutation which was called D614G. G was one of the base which was mutated. And now we are thinking there are multiple mutations happening in British virus. So answer to that one is, so far vaccine appears to be effective. And the scientists who developed the vaccine, they are very confidently saying that even if the virus mutate, they can very rapidly adjust the messenger RNA vaccine. Just to tell you the technology-wise, 20 years ago to identify the human genome sequence, it will take a supercomputer over many years to identify our DNA. Now the same job can be done in matter of few hours, which was done in over 10 years. So it is quite possible that people will be able to come up with the more effective vaccines as well. Next slide, please. One thing I want to bring to the attention of the community and the people who are listening, virus is not a cure. Vaccine is not a cure for this virus. The vaccine is a prevention tool. Do we already have some very effective prevention tools? Yes, we do. We have PPE, masks, social distancing, and other recommended guidelines. I will just quote you one colleague nurse who loves to work in COVID units as a mission of her life. Since March, only place she has worked in ICUs dealing with COVID patients. And very confidently, she said, I haven't got a single infection in almost 9 months working with COVID patients 24/7. She hasn't had a vaccine. All she is doing, taking good care. So despite the vaccine, how successful it is, we do have good tools, and even after the vaccine is given, it is not going to prevent you from getting infected with the virus. You may still get infected with the virus. Your disease may not be that symptomatic. You may not end up in ICU. Whether you will be able to pass on that virus to other people, we don't know yet. But one thing we know for sure, and very confidently, precautions and prevention does work. And we will need to probably continue to do that one. With the current data available, we were hoping to vaccinate over 10 million people by December 31st. And to last time when I checked, close to 3 million people have been vaccinated in United States. President-elect Biden has pledged that he will vaccinate 100 million people in first 100 days. That means by end of April, you will still have only 1/3 of the United States population vaccinated. Other 2/3 will be still at risk and in danger. So the prevention, that is the message to take home in addition to tool of vaccine to be used at its best. Next slide, please. At the beginning of the pandemic, in first few weeks, I was able to read up-to-date literature. 20, 30, 50, 60 papers will come to the market I'm talking about the papers published by medical media. When I checked last evening, over 200,000 scientific papers have been published. What to believe and what not to believe is very difficult. This pandemic of virus is creating a pandemic of research papers. So please be very careful what you read and where you read. CDC is a very good tool. WHO is a very good source. At the beginning of slide, Brother Umar Shakur also mentioned few Muslim websites, which tells you more information about that one. Another site which I liked, and I'm also part of that one, is British Board of Scholars. They have their own organization and website addresses there, and also John Hopkins. You can pick any site you like, but my recommendation is please pick few authentic websites and stick with that one. Don't keep on changing your source of information on daily basis, because it will simply make you very confused. I cannot analyze over 200,000 papers in medical field with 30 plus years of experience in research and medical field. So that's probably part of that which I cover. I believe we need to hear a few very important topics, information from Brother Fawad, and also I will pass on back to Brother Tokir. And a lot of thanks to the participants, and a lot of thanks to ICNI board members and the people who are putting so much effort, and IT department. So I cannot individually mention the efforts of all the people involved in this effort to help us and to educate our community. Thank you. And Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakumullah, Dr. Chima. I again wanted to thank the participants, Dr. Shakur, Dr. Abuzahid, and Dr. Chima for your time and effort on this. It really means a lot, and for your sharing this beneficial information to our community. So now I'll pass it over to Brother Fawad, who will walk us through some of the future of the implementation of the vaccine.
So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I actually just wanted to just take a short break because there were a couple of questions that were asked, and perhaps, I mean, they were in related to vaccine specifically. So, perhaps, our experts can take a moment to answer them. I will repeat if that's okay, Brother Tokir.
Yeah, that's totally fine. We can you can ask the questions to the panelists, and they can answer, inshallah, whatever feels appropriate.
So the first of the question was that what is the worst side effect for vaccine? I believe perhaps this could already be answered. But then there was another question which actually was very important. Actually, one of the questions I personally wanted to ask as well is that can an immunized person spread the disease still, right? So Brother Abuzahid actually perhaps mentioned that it's still under investigation. Can we elaborate a little bit perhaps more on that? What does that mean?
Actually, they don't know yet. I mean, this is a journal consensus that they don't know yet because asymptomatic transfer has been recorded. So they are afraid that this may be. And that's why, you see there's a question of herd immunity and all those things. Those are more like wish list as of now, according to what I see. Because herd immunity and immunity transfer can only be calculated if you know that asymptomatic transfer will not be there and immunized people will not be transferring. So can they guess that, that the idea is that the less the viral load in a patient is, the less the transfer is. And that's how they are looking at it now, that the viral load in a patient is also a factor in transferring to other people. And so, I mean, anyone else can, maybe they read something and they know about it, but that's what currently I see it, that it's still under investigation. And these things, I watched the CDC approval of this vaccine, and these are all the questions. That's why they didn't get complete approval. They only got emergency authorization.
So what you're saying is that, what Dr. Chima concluded with essentially, right? Even just getting the vaccine is perhaps not enough, that it's not a cure, following guidelines, following, social distancing and mask, everything would still remain very important in future and upcoming future as well, right? That's what you're getting to perhaps.
Definitely, until we get some more knowledge about this vaccine.
So I have
Sure.
a follow-up question
So the
that I
last-
received in regards to this question. So Dr. Chima, to what you had mentioned that these other precautions are needed, then when can we expect, in a sense, normalcy again pre-COVID with the implementation of vaccines? Because the news is stating that you're expecting herd immunity prior to having any sense of normalcy again. So if you could
So thank you, Brother
share some
Taqil.
thoughts on that.
I just came back and you can see that I already have put on the mask. Not because I'm at this point in a exposure zone, this is really give the message back. The same question was asked to Dr. Fauci in one of the press conferences recently, and he predicted it will probably take another full year before we can expect somewhat normalcy in our life. So there are a couple of variables, like polio was eradicated from the globe once we immunized most of the available and vulnerable population. Then virus transmission stopped. Having said that that virus is very stable virus. That virus does not mutate that much. On the other hand, probably most of you already have in your lifetime coronavirus infection at some stage. Coronaviruses are not that rare. They are fairly common. So they can cause common cold, they can cause flu-like illness, and then they can go unnoticed. This particular virus was called novel coronavirus because human race was not previously exposed to it. In the 70s and in 80s, the coronavirus was actually discovered in somewhat early 60s. So if we project that we are able to vaccinate only 100 million Americans by April 2021, two-thirds population is still not vaccinated, herd immunity is not there yet. To achieve the herd immunity, you are talking about anything close to 280 or maybe 300 million people to be vaccinated. So if the vaccination curve goes like this one, I'm afraid to say 2021 is pretty much gone with the face mask and precautions, and we cannot be complacent and lower our guards yet. And if virus starts mutating and virus does not keep up pace with that one, it might potentially delay the whole herd immunity a little bit longer. So going back to that one, yes, vaccine is very important. And why I brought that topic up, you will be probably surprised. One physician, which I know, I was talking to him last week, and he said, I'm waiting, absolutely waiting for this magic vaccine to show up. Once I get the vaccine, I will be all set. I just looked at him and I said, will you be? I think probably you and me, we both need to go home and read something more. So this misconception is not in the general public, it is also among even medical professionals. So there is some bias, and I would say because of some misinformation about this pandemic and virus, which has been going on for the whole year, we might continue to have misinformation coming to us in the coming months and years. So coming back to your answer very briefly, if we are successful in creating herd immunity, the earliest time frame projected even by Dr. Fauci is probably end of next year or end of 2021, which is already New Year.
Yes, but just to give people a little bit of hope, I would say that does underscore though the importance of getting the vaccines. You know.
Right.
So,
Oh, absolutely. Vaccine is very important tool. If you look into the way polio has been eradicated,
Yes,
the way measles has been brought under control.
exactly.
So the vaccine, in my opinion, is a single best available tool to bring this pandemic under control.
Yeah,
Having said that one, while we are in the process of that one,
yes,
we cannot fail ourselves by lowering our guards and becoming complacent.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
think
it's not
both
a
things
light
need to
switch.
work together.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a gradual process. It's not going to be a light switch that we just turn on or off.
Absolutely. So face mask, distance, keeping all the things which you already know. I don't need to go back into the details. And now vaccine on top of that, a very good tool available. As far as all the scientific data which is out there, I'm very impressed with that.
So I have to follow up question to Dr. Umar and Dr. Chima. If you received the vaccine, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. I did, alhamdulillah, I got the first shot of the Pfizer vaccine, and alhamdulillah, there was very little side effects. The biggest thing was a few hours after actually when I got it, I didn't feel anything. A few hours after getting the injection, there was arm pain on the side of where the injection was, and that lasted about a day. So I would say you do get a little bit of arm pain there, but that was really the biggest side effect. Actually, that's kind of consistent with what's been reported as far as side effects. It's usually arm pain. Maybe some people get a low-grade temperature, but the first shot is not really the one where you would experience most of the side effects anyway. It's after the second shot that most people feel something. So we'll find out, inshallah, next week. I'll get the second shot. But with that one is where you get the fever more. The first one is more arm pain. The second one, sometimes there's a low grade temperature. But I think it's important to keep in mind as well that a lot of people, have made a lot of questions or concerns over the allergic reactions and serious allergic reactions. One thing that's very neat about the way that they're tracking the injections is that you can, the CDC will give you a website, a phone tracking system. So what happens is after you get the shot, you are watched for 15 minutes afterwards to make sure that you don't have a serious reaction. So it's a little different than usual vaccines where they just give it to you and send you on your way. So you're observed for 15 minutes to make sure that there's no serious side effects. Then after that, you register for something called V-Safe, like the letter V for victory. V-Safe, which every day the CDC texts you and asks you how you're feeling. So they have a series of questions, and then you send it back to them. And if you, God forbid, develop any serious reactions, then they contact you to see what's going on. So they're tracking the vaccines very closely and the reactions very closely. And alhamdulillah, the number of serious adverse reactions for the thousands and thousands of doses that have been given out in the United States already have been very, very low. And most of the people who had serious reactions have a history of reactions. So I don't know that we've seen very many reactions in people without risk factors for it.
So another question to follow up that I received, if we get inter-community immunity up to 60, 80%, can we resume our daily activities? To Dr. Umar or Dr. Chima, whoever would like to answer.
Well, I think Dr. Chima answered that in part, that yes, once we get herd immunity up, there's debate in the scientific literature about what that level is. But I would say, yes, most people say around 60%. Then inshallah, the risk go down. But what does that mean in terms of masking and precautions? We'll have to wait and see. But I think Dr. Chima answered that yes, inshallah, maybe in a year or so with herd immunity, we'll have some normalcy again. But I think for this year, we still, even after you get a vaccine, until we are closer to herd immunity, we have to continue to take precautions.
just to add to this, I mean, we don't yet know the half-life of this vaccine because half-life will make us know when to revaccinate. So what I'm saying is let's take it to what it is. And when we say 2021 is out, 2021 is out when we all vaccinate. If we don't, if 50% of the people don't vaccinate, then maybe 2022 and 23 will be out too. So, I mean, just the importance of vaccination is it's so critical.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that message hopefully is getting across that without vaccination, nothing changes.
So I'd now like to pass it over to Brother Fuad to talk about some of the future implementation of the vaccine.
Jazakallah khair. I'm really grateful to Dr. Chima, Dr. Umar Shakur, Dr. Abdul Zahir, for not only providing valuable insight, but, making us comfortable about the vaccine as well, really giving us so much detail. It certainly provided me a lot of details. And, and really, after seeing Dr. Zahir, backing the mRNA technology so much, and Dr. Chima and Dr. Shakur supporting it, this is perhaps one, jab that I'm eager to get it when it comes out, really, right? Usually people are, with flu vaccine or something, they're delaying it, but this is one that I think so I'll be standing in a line when it becomes available and I'm eligible. At the same time, just to take a few seconds, is that I would like to thank all of our tabeebs and our scientists, our ulama, our community, who have taken time out of their busy life to continue to provide us guidance, which is extremely important for us, right? And all our first-line healthcare workers, there are so many in our community. Dr. Waqar Chima is one of them. Dr. Umar Shakur is one of them. Dr. Khalid Isa is one of them. Dr. Naveed Aslam is another one of them. And like all these, people who have done so much, not only for our community, but continue to do their jobs as well. So mashallah, may Allah, protect and reward you immensely. Why I'm here is, as Dr. Chima was also, he touched upon a lot of details which are extremely crucial for all of us, really, right? So it's essentially, and I think so some of the community members are asking the same questions. What lies in the future? Now 2020 is behind us. How are we looking towards future now? What is 2021 bringing to us? Is it, bringing more hope for us? Yes, inshallah, there is always some hope, right? So I'm here to share some details that what we could be expecting. I think so some of it already got answered, or mentioned, but there is a lot more detail as well as, that is coming out from a corporate side, from governance side. Yes, I just received a private message. Yes, mashallah, there are so many, tabeebs and ulama and scientists in our community. I'm sorry, I was unable to say all the names. I just said that came to my mind, but mashallah, we are blessed. We are truly blessed with all the experts that we have. Jazakallah khair. So, people who know me personally, right? You see me a lot of time at ICNE. I'm either standing next to you, either volunteering, I'm either praying with you, I'm attending an event, be it Halaqa, be it barbecues, whatever, you see that, right? And we all love to do that. This was a difficult year. The 2020 was indeed perhaps the most challenging year that any of us actually saw, right? That actually challenged us to a different level, right? And all of these people, all of us, who love ICNE in their community, it actually hit us really hard as well, because it's the community that brings us together. So, and so many of us like to travel, right? We are here, we like to travel, we like to go places, we like to meet people, not just coming together, but also actually going to other communities, right? We were not able to do all of them. Now the question is that, would that continue to happen, right? That's the big unknown, I think. So everyone is trying to know. I mean, and I think so Dr. Waqar Chima touched upon it a little bit, which is extremely crucial. Dr. Zahir actually gave his insights as well, which is extremely crucial. It's about prevention, right? But this is a challenge, right? Which so many of administrators, governors, experts, be it in scientific community, in the tech community, be it in boards, they're actually brainstorming and coming up with ideas on how to address that, right? But there is one thing that's possible, that technology and people can always find a solution, right? There is always a solution, right? I mean, there's something I've just missed, right? That, for example, Dr. Umar Shakur mentioned, right? That e-safe thing, right? I mean, if at the end of the day, it's a technology, it's a piece of technology, perhaps an app, perhaps a website that CDC is using to monitor people who have already taken the vaccinations, Pfizer, mRNA, whatever, right? But they are keeping track of it, right? Like, alhamdulillah, just a little bit of digress, ICNE did. Imagine 2-3 years back, the only method of donation to ICNE was through checks and cash. We brought Mohit system, right? That helped us so much. We could do it from home now. We could do it through an app now, through a website now. We can use our credit card or debit card and so many things. Same thing, again, a little bit more digression, right? We established IT. Alhamdulillah, we are able to have this session and still be connected through Zoom from the comfort of our house. Yes, we would have liked to do it through our Halaqa, but since that is not a possibility, we are still connected, right? So technology and people, when they come together, they find solutions. And that is the key here, finding a solution. As Dr. Waqar Chima mentioned, if you recall, that there has to be a certain level of immunization, inoculation, right, that you have to have just to do Umrah, right? We all get it. We don't even ask a question, because guess what? It's the better good that we are going for. It's the Umrah or the Hajj. We must get it, right? At the same time, Dr. Waqar Chima also gave a very important insight, right? That how much of the community in general, not just ICNE, not just anywhere, just the nation needs to be immunized for us to feel safe. I think the numbers are, he mentioned 290 million. That's like 90% of the population. You see what I'm going there? I mean, this is such a massive scale of operation, which is extremely difficult to achieve without the willingness of the people who have to get vaccinated, right? So I'm learning a couple of various things that organizations, especially private organizations, right, such as in the travel industry, such as in hotels, and so many organizations like clubs and sports clubs and sports stadiums, and so many of them are working. As again, going back, Waqar Chima did mention that it's not a law, but there are organizations who have certain, they have certain tools that they can use, right? So one thing that I am learning is in the past, there used to be a thing called yellow card. Yellow card, I think so it's perhaps still in use. Maybe our doctors can confirm. Yellow card was issued, it used to be a physical card, literally. It used to be issued for people who would come from countries that had a yellow fever risk. It was a card which was needed and issued by WHO, and you needed that card with you to travel to another country, right? But issuing that many cards at that scale of nearly 7+ billion population of the world, I don't know, maybe 8 billion, right? It's going to be difficult, right? So now they're coming up with, and by the way, this yellow card was not the soccer yellow card. Sorry if anyone got mistaken by that. It used to be a physical card issued by World Health Organization, not by FIFA. So not the soccer match one, sorry. But it was a requirement. Now the world is digital. Alhamdulillah, ICNE is digital, I just mentioned, right? So there are various entities which are working in bringing solutions. What these digital cards would do. These cards are, first of all, developed under entities which we trust. World Economic Forum, for example. Why such forums? Because everyone at this moment wants to bring the semblance of normalcy that we are used to, right? That's what we need. The economies have to restart. It has to feel normal, right? So entities such as WEF, which is World Economic Forums, they are creating a pass called Common Pass. I can share. I'm sorry, I do not have a presentation, so I'm speaking much. I didn't get a chance for that. I do apologize, but I have this information. I would share it with you. So they are producing a code called it's called a Common Pass. What Common Pass would do, right? A Common Pass would be a digital pass that would be available on your phone. And airlines, governments, airlines, agencies, right? Various, sports clubs and venues, and even places of worship, by the way, right? Would use, and it would be globally acceptable and trusted. The key is globally acceptable and trusted as well. Like there shouldn't be any chance of forging, So that would give you entry to airlines, like flights, for example, or even countries. Like you just saw what happened when the UK announced, for example, that there is a latest strain found in their country. What happened? Every of their closest neighbor, including France and Germany and Spain, they closed their borders. What did that create? Right? A serious chaos. Same thing, so many other countries, US is doing this, they are banning flights from UK, Turkey is doing it, and everyone, right? So what this global pass kind of solutions would do would show that you have been vaccinated. You are safe, at least, for most understanding, and you can be safely entered into an area where perhaps, the distancing guidelines or mask guidelines may be a little bit reduced. Not removed, so do not quote me, but a little bit reduced, right? So and why is this gonna happen, right? I mean, the only thing that comes to mind, obviously, are safety and comfort, right? Most organizations like ICNI as well, like ICNI as well, we want our people to be safe. We like our people to be happy and smiling and safe and healthy, right? So that's the key. Like all these airlines and organizations and clubs and sports venues and whatnot, they are doing this so that their people would feel comfortable and they will feel safe, right? Again, how would they do that, right? It's going to be perhaps an app which will be on your phone. And once a person gets vaccinated, they will upload that information to that app. That app would actually work like a boarding pass, right? You go, you show your phone, you go to TSA, you show your phone with a boarding pass, a very similar mechanism that would, get used. So you can actually get access to. Now, the key here is, right, that I think all of our experts actually did emphasize the most. This is one thing that we have to get vaccinated to get herd immunity, not community. I'm sorry. We want to have herd immunity in the community, pardon me. So the deal is that having this information in a global database would allow the scientists and governments to know where attention is more needed. You see what I'm saying? If they will see that, oh, guess what? 90% people in Massachusetts have registered for this Common Pass or Global Pass. What does that mean? Massachusetts has achieved a level of inoculation and immunization which is required for our community. They can focus on another state. So all of this data is going to help administrators make better decisions as well. You see, one key thing, one last thing actually, what I'm going to mention is that I'm learning that some organizations, big organizations, big tech organizations, smaller ones, they're trying to find ways to reward their people who will get vaccinated in the form of, generous gift cards. And even some of them are actually thinking about 401k matches as well, by the way. And this is essentially a global effort, just to get as much as people vaccinated so that there can be some semblance of normalcy, can be achieved back. And there is one last one. There's not just one company that's working on just Common Pass. IBM, right? We all know the big blue. The IBM, which is a major technology company, they are working to create a digital health pass as well. And I think a lot of governments and a lot of big organizations are working with them as well and already testing these apps for their efficiency and their global acceptance, and how they would help to get the world to to the pre-COVID life, basically, that we are all used to and we all live and love and like. So I know I went quick. The only reason was because it was late, but any questions I would take, or if any even questions for our experts who are still on the call.
Just a last point.
We're open.
And just to finish it on a little hopeful note, these products are still under clinical trial because they only got emergency use authorization. So they are fully under clinical trials, under the supervision of regulatory authorities. And I expect very large amount of data in the next 1 to 2 months. And hopefully all our worries will be, I hope and pray that all our worries are taken care of. Thank you.
We had one question before we conclude, Dr. Chima. I'm sorry, there's one question. The question was, people who have recovered from COVID-19, do they still need the vaccine?
So that is exactly the question. I was coming to that one. If somebody has, any one of you have filled the app to get the COVID vaccine yet? So if you have not, when you'll do, they will ask you this question very specifically. Did you have any COVID infection in last 90 days? So at this point, consensus is if somebody has a COVID infection, they have some degree of immunity and antibodies, which may be effective up to 90 days, but that data is still being evaluated. So the current vaccine crunch is such that at this point, they are recommending if you had a COVID infection in the last 90 days, you may have to wait to get the COVID vaccine. And second question, which also came on my cell phone, was very important, which we need to understand. Tonight, sitting in my house, in my room, I put this face mask on just to give this message out. COVID fatigue syndrome is a new COVID fatigue thing. If you have to constantly do the face mask and precautions, one of the day you are going to get tired. People are getting tired. So please be careful about COVID fatigue, which is one thing. And the other thing on that one is taking all the precautions, taking vaccine on time, and doing all the due diligence, what you do. It is not only for your well-being, it is for family and the community. I mean, the other question which Brother Toki raised, how many million we need to vaccinate, United States current population is 331 million. If you want to achieve herd immunity, 70% plus number is required. That means you will need to vaccinate 210 to 220 million. So these are the numbers and statistics, but at the end, take-home message is vaccine is effective. And the other thing which you can take some comfort, in the first phase, doctors and nurses are being vaccinated. So trust me, in 3 months' time, you will have a lot more data coming from real patients like, not the patient, I would say, the real recipients like Brother Umar Shakur or other physicians who will be getting the vaccine, and more reaction benefit data will come in the market. So this is the way it is, although sometimes we joke among ourselves, medical profession is being experimented as on a vaccine. And one question which Brother Abdul Zahir brought that one, do you remember having emergency authorization used for hydroxychloroquine in March? For 3 months, it was FDA authorized medicine. As soon as they found out that medicine is causing more harm than good, it was removed from emergency authorization use. The COVID vaccine at this point is not technically FDA approved. It is FDA authorized for emergency use authorization. So there's a barrage of data which will be coming out about side effects, about efficacy. So inshallah, we have a lot good to look forward to. And when it comes to the travel, and tomorrow, if vaccine is the only thing stopping me going for Umrah, I'll get it. And for my profession, I'll get it. And there are already some institutions which will require you to have even influenza vaccine before they allow you to work in their premises. So basically, overall, we are entering a very beautiful phase of fighting the pandemic with one more tool. In March, we had really nothing, no information, just a wild virus. Today, we have a lot more to think about that one. And when you do all that one, please also take this thing into account as a believer. You need to keep your faith. There are a lot of hidden blessings in this pandemic. Search for those, do your soul searching, and whatever the science and technology comes in front of you, if you want to have the latest iPhone, why don't you want to have the latest vaccine? That's all my concluding remark on this one. If there are any more questions, please feel free to text me privately, email me, although because we have already run over time, and I will put the mask off now just to show you it is the important tool. We can work on that one, and Brother Tokir can take over from here if there are any more compelling questions to be answered tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chima. I really wanted to thank all of our panelists, from Dr. Omar Shakur, Dr. Abdul Zahir, Dr. Chima, and Brother Fuad. May Allah bless you and your families. And there is no more questions. I know it's late, it's 10 o'clock. Please feel free to reach out to Dr. Chima, Dr. Omar Shakur, and Dr. Abdul Zahid and Brother Fuad individually. They're all community members, and I'm pretty sure they're fine with sharing their contact information if you need it. Again, may Allah bless you and your families, and thank you for such informative session. And we hope to hear more good news coming out with therapies and vaccinations, inshallah, and then we'll be in touch. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah.